Hi, this is Dr. Joe Green, head pastor of Antioch Assembly Church located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Also the founder of the 2019 movement. And I want to share a couple of thoughts with you. This recent issue with Judge Brett Kavanaugh and these accusers, he's, of course, if you're familiar with the issue, he's nominated for Supreme Court Justice by President Donald Trump. And there's a huge controversy now of these women. It was two, last I heard, in a possible, almost like spades, two in a possible, women who are accusing him of sexual impropriety. First thing I want to say is I am a big proponent, if you will, to help women and children fight against sexual abuse and those type of things. I've worked closely with Senator Stuart Greenleaf and some of the other state senators in their passage of legislation called safe harbor bills and different things. They tried to pass legislation to help fight against human sex trafficking and try to protect the victim over the victimizer. That's something that's been very near and dear to my heart. I worked shortly as a probation officer. And as a probation officer, I worked on a sex offender caseload for a period of time. So I've worked with tens, if not hundreds of people that were either victims or victimizers in sexual abuse, whether it's rape, sexual assault or something along those lines. And plus my experience as a pastor and just as a person, I've had some experience. Now, I will say for the record, by the grace of God, I wasn't directly affected by sexual abuse growing up. But as I have become an adult and I've worked with a lot of people, I see more and more people that have actually been affected by it, more people than I would have liked to imagine. And some of you may be familiar with them. The statistics are a lot higher than most people would probably think, unless you actually did the research. But anyway, so I wanted to lay that groundwork. So anything I say, I don't want it to be deemed as being insensitive or anything of that nature. But we have to look at the facts. And this isn't about protecting the victims. This is about political partisanship. It's an anti-Trump movement and an and more importantly, because when you examine the accusers, the first accuser, she was very much a Democratic activist, if you will. She's worked closely with high-ranking Democrats, very liberal, very much a pro-choice abortion advocate. And so it's no coincidence that she's one of the most outspoken people against Judge Kavanaugh. So just so you know, Judge Kavanaugh is considered a pro-life judge. And so what the left is afraid of is that if Judge Kavanaugh makes it to the bench as a Supreme Court justice, along with Trump's other nominee, then he would have the balance of power would be shifted for the conservatives. And what the left is fearing is that they will be able to overturn Roe versus Wade. This is the core of what this whole controversy is about. And I'm going to break it down briefly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this video. But the core of this is about trying to keep President Trump from getting conservatives on the bench. Because what this Dr. Ford is saying and what the Democrats are saying is that let's take time, put this on pause, so that we can do a further investigation. But in essence, the reason they want to delay the process is because in November you have the upcoming midterm elections, and the Democrats want to, or believe that they can seize power in the House or the Senate, or in Congress, I should say. And so because the Supreme Court justices are interviewed and voted on by Congress, if they get the majority vote, they think that they can vote down President Trump's choice for Supreme Court. So really what they're trying to do is they're trying to run interference. They're trying to delay the process. And it's simply a political strategy, a bipartisan political strategy that the left is employing. And I think that this is important for several reasons. First of all, and some of the proof to this is that Dianne Feinstein had the information about this particular victim, the first victim, and she sat on it for months, and she waited until the last moment to release this information to hold up the process. If she was sincerely simply trying to get truth out there, she would have done it when she first got the information. So it's quite obvious that this is a political ploy, and it's an anti-Trump and an anti pro-life conservative strategy, as opposed to trying to help the victim. Now, again, I don't want to diminish anytime someone is victimized by sexual abuse. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if something really happened, she should have went to the police. That's not what I'm here to say. But what I am here to say is that in this day and time, sexual assault and sexual abuse is being being weaponized against males and against the right. Not just against the right, but it's being weaponized by the feminist movement against the right, because, our due process says you're innocent until proven guilty. But what they're doing in this day and age is they're saying that because she accused him of something, then we automatically have to assume that she is telling the truth and that he is lying. Because at the end of the day, he said it didn't happen. She said it did happen. One of them is not correct. One of them is not, I'm not saying they're not being truthful, because she may believe something happened. She may have misremembered it. He could have possibly misremembered it, but the burden of proof is on her. She mentioned a couple of other people, I think at least 3 other people that were supposedly at this party. She couldn't remember the day of the party, where it was located. She had a vague recollection of some of the people that were there, and all the people that were supposedly there said that they didn't remember this party ever happening, and they all said they definitely didn't remember this incident taking place. So again, the burden of proof has to be on the accuser. But because this is a political ploy, they're not looking for it to necessarily, the truth to be out there, but they're trying to delay the process. So that's the first thing. Now, the reason this is so important is not just because you're for or against President Trump, but I met a lot of victims of rape and sexual abuse and sexual assault over the years. I see the type of trauma that it causes on people that have been abused. There's a lot of controversy and a lot of information that has come out recently about these Catholic priests that have victimized large numbers of people that have been victimized by Catholic priests. And so this is a very tragic thing. And anytime it happens, the perpetrator should be brought to justice. There has to be something that is done. You had statute of limitations in certain states and certain areas, and so they may not get criminally charged, but their reputation should be completely destroyed. If you victimize kids, and again, this is a predator. I'm not talking about an incident that happened and a person is regretful for it. I'm talking about these are predators. These priests were praying. It was systematic, and it was long term, and it was multiple victims. So this is not a mistake. This is not a lapse in judgment or anything like that. This is intentional, and a person who shows that they are a predator, they need to be locked away, of course, but because of the statute of limitations, sometimes that doesn't happen. But at worst, they need to be exposed, and they need to be kicked out of being a priest or whatever. They need to be considered an outcast in society. They don't need to be walking around here as an accepted member of society. Now, of course, one of the things that people say, well, President Trump was never accused of rape. And I want to be factual. See, the reason I'm saying this is being weaponized is because people understand what an emotional issue this is. And so a lot of the victims, what they do is immediately when they hear somebody being victimized, or the possibility or the accusation of someone being sexually abused or raped or molested or whatever, because they have an emotional response, and because many of these women either didn't feel the courage to come forward, or they may have come forward, but they weren't believed, or it was swept under the rug, or other people knew that they were victimized and they didn't do anything about it. And because of that, this emotional response of just attaching to the accuser and saying she has to be heard because this is what happens to people. See, that's when you become emotional. That's when you attach emotions and you ignore logic. And so it's important that something as serious as this, that this could ruin this man's reputation. His livelihood will most likely be destroyed if this is found to be a credible accusation. And so we have to really be careful in examining these things. And again, if you're holding people accountable for something that happened when they were a 17-year-old teenager, and she wasn't raped, but obviously what she's accusing him of is being very sexually aggressive, and you can call it harassment or abuse or whatever you want to call it. She wasn't raped. She's not accusing him of being raped. The second, to me, the second accuser is even worse, because she's saying that at a party, he exposed himself to her. They didn't really know each other. There's no other witnesses to corroborate the story. And the fact that this mysteriously comes up at this time, that it has also smells of a political strategy being perpetrated. So it's important for us to look at the facts, separate emotions, and use logic in examining these things, and also understand what is somebody's motivation. Because in this political environment that we're in now, we see dirty tactics being used on both sides. The liberals especially have all out just went completely ballistic when it comes to dirty tactics. You know, whether it be lies, whether it be fake dossiers that they spent millions of dollars to create, all kind of things. You know, this Russian probe that just has arrested everybody that's even in striking distance of President Trump with the hope that somehow or another they'll be able to connect some kind of dots or get somebody to turn on him and make a confession. At this point, and the first thing people will say is, oh, there's been a lot of convictions and felonies that have been handed down. Yes, but none of those felonies had anything to do with the campaign of President Trump or anything directly to do with him. And so they started this saying it was Russian collusion between Trump and the Russians for him to win the presidency, but nothing like that has come out. And when you understand that this dossier that is the core of the FISA warrant for the investigation, they found it to be false and fraudulent, and the Democrats paid money for this phony dossier. You know, and anytime in a case, especially a legal case or an investigation, once you find that the core evidence that you were using is fraudulent, then that brings the whole investigation into question. You can't build a strong case on faulty information. That's just you know, investigation 101. But in any event, we have to understand that you know, as the American public, we have to be getting tired of this stuff, that they are really wasting a lot of our time and our money. And instead of us being able to move forward as a country, all this false stuff is coming up. You know, these false accusations, and I'm calling them false. They may not be. They may not be false. Let me say that there may be some truth to it. There's a lot of credibility issues with this, and my point is, the core of my point is that because she doesn't remember the day and the time, she doesn't, you know, it could be him or it couldn't be him. You know, this other lady, there's no witnesses, and the timing is very peculiar of why this was released when it was, that we can't rush to judgment and act upon the fact that we believe that this is a true and credible thing. And people shouldn't have the right to hold up this process, this very important part of our American government process, by using these tactics that they're using. And so again, I want us to be very mindful of that, because I do believe that as the average American, the system has been taking advantage. There's so much corruption in government that it can't be about, let me say this, it can't be about the person. When you like the person or dislike the person, then the rules change. Because what you have to look at, you want things to be done fair and right, whether you agree with the person or not. Because maybe right now it's, you know, this accuser is against the person you dislike, because a lot of people seem like they dislike President Trump from an emotional level because you disagree with him and you dislike him. Then you want to throw the rules out the window, because there's going to come a time that the person who's being accused is somebody you care about. So what if it's your son? What if it's your brother? What if it's your husband? What if it's your father? What if it's that person on the side of that? Do you really want that such a loose opportunity to be accused of something? You know, like I said, if somebody came tomorrow and said, you know, I'm 51 right now. If they said, you know, when you were 17 years old, we were at a drunken party and you touched a girl inappropriately. I don't believe that has happened, because nobody's come to me and told me that about me. I'm pretty sure, I'm about 99.99% sure that didn't happen. But by the same token, I'm a completely different person. I'm not that. I'm not a 17-year-old. I'm not a 17-year-old at a wild, you know, party with a lot of alcohol, which is what they're accusing this situation of being. So anyway, we have to be fair. Again, if you ever been victimized by rape or sexual abuse, this should matter to you as well, because it's like the boy that cried wolf. Anytime someone could just make a blanket accusation with no type of proof, no evidence, and very vague recollections, that diminishes your ability to be heard. It diminishes your ability for a victim who's crying out for help and it's a real situation. You're going to get lumped in the category of everybody makes these accusations. They come up all the time. And so the more accusations that lack credibility that's allowed to just randomly go through the system, it'll clog the system up, and real victims could get passed over. And so you should be concerned about this, whether you've been victimized or not, because this is a very serious issue. And it's quite clear to me that these people are using this for a political gain. They're using this because, I mean, at 53 years old, if the only dirt you can find on me happened over 30-something years ago when I was a teenager, then obviously his record is pretty solid. I mean, just think about that for a second. A 53-year-old man, and he's going through 6 FBI background checks, and the only thing they can come up with at the 11th hour is a couple of women who have these vague recollections of when he was 17 or 18 years old. So the one was when he was 17 years old. The other one was his freshman year in college. And so 17 and 18-year-olds, 35, I think, years ago, these things possibly occurred, or they're being accused of occurring. A lot of people also have tried to equate this to Clarence Thomas. And let me tell you why that's not true. That's not an accurate comparison. They said, well, Anita Hill went through a FBI investigation. And so they want the same thing for this process. But let me tell you why this is not the same. The reason this is not the same is because Anita Hill was a federal employee that was accusing her boss of sexual harassment. That's there's a huge difference in that. She was a federal employee. I think it was the EEOC or something they were working in. She was working under Clarence Thomas, and she accused him of sexual harassment. And so that's a completely different. First of all, she was a federal employee. He was a federal employer. So he was a boss that was hiring and firing people. And that's a big no-no. Also, there's very strict laws in the federal government regarding these particular issues. So that's why there was such a deeper investigation from this. So this is not the same thing. We're talking about accusations here of a couple of teenagers, a couple of minors that were drinking alcohol 30 plus years ago. And so it's a quite different situation here. The other thing is that the liberal left is so hypocritical. And again, we should want fairness, especially as people of color. Let me say this to you. I'm going to take a second, and then I'm going to move on to my next point. Especially as people of color, and especially as a black man, we should be very leery of false accusations of sexual harassment or rape. Why do I say that? Some of you may or may not be familiar with Emmett Till. There was a time in the South, from slavery and through Jim Crow, that a black man could get lynched or thrown in jail or beaten, and many times it was because of false accusations. There's a story about Emmett Till, if you're not familiar with it. He was in the Deep South, and a white lady accused him of whistling at her. He was 15 years old. She accused him of whistling at her. He was severely beaten, murdered, and thrown in the river. And if you go online and you Google it, because when they had the funeral, his mother made them have an open casket because she wanted the world to see just how barbaric these people were. And the lady who accused him of whistling at her later admitted that she lied. I'm going to say that again. She admitted, she's on record admitting that she lied. She lied on this young black man. She was white, he was black. It was the Deep South. She accused him of whistling at her, and because of that, he was brutally beaten and murdered. There were men that was lynched. If you watch the movie The Birth of a Nation with D.W. Griffith, they said that the Ku Klux Klan was created to protect white women from black men. Look at the movie. These are all historical facts. This is not my opinion. And so especially as people of color, as a black man, I should be very leery of, accusations that have no evidence. And, like I said, 30 plus years ago, I really want this to be looked at. I mean, when I say looked at, I don't want us to rush to judgment. And I'm especially offended when it smells as though this is a political ploy. And you should feel the same way. The other part of the liberal hypocrisy is that Bill Clinton is on, he's paid out. We know he definitely was a sexual harasser. He definitely had a relationship with an intern, which is inappropriate for his office. There's a lot of payouts that he has for sexually abusing women, and he's been accused by Juanita Broaddrick and many other people of actually raping women. Juanita Broaddrick, she's on record. She went to the police. She went to the authorities. She's been on for years saying that he raped her. And it was, if you listen to her account, it's very credible. But yet Bill Clinton still not only walks around, but he still has a place of honor in our community. For the most part, he's walking around unscathed. You have Keith Ellison, who's been accused of physical abuse, domestic violence by more than one woman. And, there's police reports filed and everything. There's one of her children, the one lady's children or child, wrote that she saw him beating her. So these are very credible accusations, but yet that's being brushed under the rug. The Democratic Party, the liberals are not, and the media, they're not calling for him to step down. He's being looked at for, I think it's Attorney General of Minnesota or whatever the case may be. So he's not facing the same scrutiny, even though this is a more recent accusation and very credible. There's evidence, police reports, and even a witness that says that he domestically abused someone. But that's being swept under the rug. But this accusation is getting 10 times more attention. And somebody say, yeah, but he's going for Supreme Court. Attorney General of a state is a very, very, it's not a federal position, but the Attorney General of a state is just as powerful in that state as the Attorney General is. The Supreme Court justice in the United States, because you have states' rights and each state has individual power. So, but there's a lot of hypocrisy, which also shows you that this is a political tactic. And again, we as the American public should get fed up with this. We should want things to be done right and just, and we shouldn't allow these people to play this game with us, that they're playing this political game. And whether you like President Trump or not, he's very straightforward and straight up. He talks off the top of his head. Like I said, he's very crude and he's very sensitive and he insults people. But I would say he's very transparent. He speaks his mind. However he feels, it just comes right out. So I would appreciate that more. And he's not an idiot, so let's stop saying that. He's built over the years, over the last 30 or 40 years, very successful businesses, Trump Tower, Trump this, Trump that. So this whole notion of that he's some kind of idiot or he's crazy or something like that, that's just another tactic of the left and the mainstream media, which is part of the left, to try to just tear him down. But anyway, I just really wanted to share those thoughts because as a person who has worked closely with hundreds of people that have either been abused sexually or have abused people, and over the years I've had experiences with these things, I see the pain that's caused by someone who gets raped or sexually abused or molested. I understand from talking to these people to a certain degree, as much as you can understand someone else's feelings. I understand the pain that they feel and the helplessness that they feel when nobody listens to them. Because there's a lot of these accusations, like the Harvey Weinstein situation. A lot of them said they told people, and people said that's just Harvey being Harvey. Of course, that's the liberal left, and they're okay with that kind of stuff. But I want us to begin to look at these things, and I want us to begin to hold people accountable, because this whole Me Too movement, it has to be sincere. If we find that it's being weaponized for people to use as a tool, these people need to be held accountable, because a lot of lives will be destroyed. And more importantly, the real victims will get lost in the shuffle if we don't hold them accountable. This has been Dr. Joe Green. I wanted to share my thoughts on this, and I just want this thing to move forward. We need to go ahead and Judge Kavanaugh, I believe, should should just go ahead. They should go ahead and vote on him and get him confirmed or whatever, so we can move forward. Let's not play this, partisan politics. Because at the end of the day, whether you like President Trump or not, he won the election. He got voted in. He has a right to be the president, whether you like him or not. Just because you disagree with him, there's a lot of people that do agree with him as well. So anyway, till next time, peace and blessings to you. Shalom.